I hope everybody had a very merry, very happy Christmas. Even Donald Trump, who can't seem to help but threaten everyone and everything around him, he can't seem to turn it off for one day, especially against late night television hosts that he hates and wishes nothing but the worst for them. But honestly, Donald Trump wishes he were somewhere else, doing something else, because the barbarism of his deportation methods has just been laid bare. Now, before I talk about the main bulk of it, here's the situation. CBS News, specifically 60 Minutes, was one of my trusted sources of information around the world. Every Sunday, I would trust these people, the journalists, who remember their mission is not to entertain and not to placate to any one world leader, but to inform the public. CBS and 60 Minutes have failed in their mission. They failed when they held an hour-long town hall for the widow of Charlie Kirk, Erica, to transmit her hatred and hate speech across the entire country. And when confronted by the consequences of her hate speech, her husband's hate speech, she continued to defend it, even knowing the cost of her husband's life. Barry Weiss, the editor-in-chief of CBS News, has shown nothing but disdain for the truth in the hopes of placating Donald Trump. And guess what? It almost worked. It really almost worked. Except for the fact that her attempts stabbed her in the back in the worst ways possible. 60 Minutes was going to air a story inside CCOT. CCOT is obviously the terrorism confinement center in Chacola, El Salvador. Basically, it's a maximum security prison built in 2022 amid a large-scale gang crackdown of the country. Now, 60 Minutes actually filmed a lot of what went on, interviews with some of the detainees. They had this report ready to go and ready to air on 60 Minutes. But on the direct orders of Barry Weiss, on the direct orders of Donald Trump and his people in Homeland Security, the story itself was shelved. Not because it was too graphic, because the story would contain stories of mental, physical, and sexual torture inflicted on some of the inmates, not because it was about morality. We shouldn't be showing things like this on national television, but because it was going to embarrass a lot of people, namely government officials like the president of El Salvador, Nabeel Ortiz, and particularly, Donald Trump. The report was never meant to be seen by anyone in the United States, or anyone in the world for that matter. This report was going to embarrass a lot of people and bring to light some inhumane kind of stuff that was going on in that prison. Unfortunately, guess what happened? It was shown. Now again, I can't show you any clips of this report because of YouTube rules. CBS is kind of funny that way with this content. But guess what happened? Our neighbors to the north, Canada, actually did show the report. And guess what else happened? The report was shown and uploaded onto YouTube. And guess what? I got a chance to see it. I watched the agonizing 13 minutes and 36 seconds of that report. I watched the whole background of how this all happened when Donald Trump created this policy of deporting everybody. He was going after the worst of the worst, the criminals, the hardcore criminals, and sending them to a country that a lot of them had no connection to a maximum security prison. And the reasons weren't for national security. They weren't, as Trump would say, going after the worst of the worst. It was for profit. But before that, the report follows around one person, an immigrant from Colombia, who is seeking asylum in the United States. But our Customs and Border Protection Agency took one look at him and said, and I quote, "He is a danger to society." Just by looking at him. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket, just looking at his brown skin, and made the decision that he was a danger to society. He was arrested and detained for 6 months awaiting a decision for his asylum claim. Instead, he was deported to El Salvador, a country he knew nothing about, a country that he had no origins in or ties to wait the hell of CTP. And the hell I speak of, well, not the hell that I speak of, but the hell that this inmate that 60 Minutes actually spoke of. He's talked about terrible living conditions. Though it is a prison, there are prisons in the United States that are more sanitary than this. People puking on each other, blood everywhere. Reports that the guards, for no provocation whatsoever, were being beaten with batons, sometimes fists and feet. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Someone's going to say it's prison. Inmates are going to get beaten. It's part of the process. No, it isn't. This goes beyond, way beyond. But guess what? People just ignore it, and people are encouraging it. And one of those people happens to be Donald Trump. In a meeting early this year with the president of El Salvador, Donald Trump decided to use the words, "There's great facilities, they're very strong facilities. They don't play games." Trump, you're seeing people being beaten out there. You're hearing about reports about dehumanization. Why am I even trying to explain things to you, Trump? It's obvious you don't give a damn. You've shown that plenty of times in this country. When you have reports of, you know what, I'm just going to end it right there. I'm moving on. Because I have something even higher and bigger and more important that should probably put you in a prison cell right now. In March of 2025, you struck a deal with El Salvador in which you paid them over $4.7 million. The house, the people you deported from this country who did commit a crime in El Salvador at CTP. That bitch you're probably fucking, Karen Levitt, went on television and lied to the American people and to the world, saying that they're all rapists and this and that, when we haven't received a bit of evidence, not a crime report of any of these people, nothing to prove that they're criminals of that caliber. 60 Minutes actually cited a report from the Human Rights Watch saying that this claim that Donald Trump and his administration have made, that every one of the Venezuelan deportees were criminals, is complete horseshit. You lied to the American people. You lied to the planet, you stupid son of a bitch. And you wonder why the world has put us on the Human Rights Watch list. You wonder why that people are not coming to the United States, because they're worried they're going to get deported and sent to hell too. That's what you did, Trump. And you tried to cover it up, and your friends at 60 Minutes tried to cover it up. But I'm not finished. We got a lot more to cover here. So if you're staying with me, it's going to get deeper and darker. Fair warning. The report also shows that only eight, that's a single digit, 8, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people have been convicted of a violent offense or a potential violent offense. That's 8 people out of the God knows how many people are crammed into that place. And before some Trumper tries to make the excuse, you're a bleeding heart, you're bleeding for criminals, you're on the side of criminals, fuck you. These people actually cross-reference criminal databases from all 50 states and federal databases, and none of them committed crimes. And the majority of them, now that's being very generous for saying that. A good number, that's even being more generous. The number is minuscule. The rest of them, which number in the thousands, didn't commit crimes. So you're lying, Trump. And again, you tried to cover it up. You tried to get your friends at CBS to cover it up. Because you know for a fact that if this comes out, your ass would be in front of, in normal times, I should say this. In a normal time, in a normal world, your ass would be up on charges for crimes against humanity, you son of a bitch. And as for you guys, you morons in the MAGA who cheer ICE rampaging through the country, hunting for immigrants, like white plantation owners on horseback, hunting down slaves. Your own fucking ICE database has shown that none of them have committed crimes. You lied to this country. You lied. And when this all comes out, and it already has, because at this point, while I'm making this video, over 2,400,000 people have watched this report from 60 Minutes, the one you and your friends at CBS tried to cover up. And what's worse, Kristi Noem, the dog killer, and the DHS have repeatedly refused to show any kind of evidence that these men who have been deported to El Salvador for CTP were criminals. My question to you, Kristi Noem, you dog-killing bitch, is why, if you have evidence that these men that you're deporting under the direct orders of Donald Trump were criminals, why wouldn't you show the evidence that we're criminals? Why wouldn't you show the proof? Because your bitch ass is lying. You can look like a tough girl Barbie all you want, you ugly bitch. But the truth is coming out, you bitch. And you are going to prison one day or another. You're going to jail. And trust me, when they use the phrase, I should say, fresh meat, you might as well have that stamped on your fucking head. The report actually also talks about the biggest excuse for the mass deportations that Trump is giving: the tattoos. The inmates that 60 Minutes interviewed said, yes, I do have tattoos, but they're not for any gang, not affiliated with any gang, including MS-13. But guess what one of our agents decided to say to him? But you are Venezuelan. Like, what explanation is that? He's Venezuelan. So what? He has tattoos that are not affiliated with any gang. So what? So not only do we have stupidity, inhumanity in all this, all for the sake of profit, we have a tinge of racism outside this whole deal. We have racism inside this whole deal that Trump purchased, bought, and deals in. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised at any of this. And to make things worse, I don't know how you call this worse, but they have a guideline for determining who's a gang member. This document, in which they actually got their hands on, pretty much is a point system. If you're over a certain number of points, that immigrant is a gang member. Even if they don't have any affiliation with gangs, they're automatically numbered as a gang member. The report talks about sexual assault by the guards, stuff humans do to a common dog. And this is, I'm trying to repress my rage, and I apologize for all the cursing, but I just can't get through my head that I just don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to say anymore to this, because it only gets worse. In case anyone forgotten, Kristi Noem, the dog-killing bitch, decided to post a video in which she thanks El Salvadoran president and CCOT in front of caged immigrants that Trump deported, practically taken as a source of pride that the innocent people are being beaten, some of them almost to death. One thing I need to say is that Human Watch groups in this country and abroad, I have to give my respect to them. I have to give respect to them because they're opening themselves up for some very bad possibilities. Because if you look at Donald Trump and his supporters, they will do whatever it takes to defend him, even if it means harming innocent people. This whole report is shedding a very dangerous light on our country. It has shown that our country, despite the last 250 years of quote-unquote progress, keeps reverting back to the original sin of slavery, of racism, of discrimination. And Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and the rest of the Trump regime have thrown us directly into it. All for the sake, as they say, of security. all for the sake of protecting American lives, when it's doing nothing but pointing the bullseye at American lives. A lot of us who didn't have anything to do with any of this, who never committed a crime in their lives, but because, as you saw early in this video, because their skin happens to be brown or black, because they may speak broken English or no English at all, because their religion is different, or because they're from another country that we deemed to be adversarial. They are somehow the enemy. And people like me and people like you who merely did the smallest thing of voting for someone else other than Donald Trump are labeled the enemy and must be exterminated to protect the people, or at the very least protect the people he he deems to be loyal. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Those who would sacrifice essential liberties to purchase temporary security do not deserve liberty nor security." These deportations that Donald Trump and the Homeland Security Kristi Noem have done in our name have made this country even less secure and less honorable. Right now, the United States is probably at the top of the list of human rights violators. At the very least, as much as I love my country, it should be at the top. Because after what I saw in this report of 60 Minutes that CBS tried to kill, everything that Donald Trump and his people are trying to cover up, in my view, in my humble opinion, this country deserves to be on the human rights list. We were, and I emphasize the word were, past tense, the beacon of light for the free world. We are not that anymore. This country is no longer the shining city on the hill. Thanks to Donald Trump, and thanks to El Salvador's president, we are now nothing more than an outlaw nation. And we have become an outlaw nation partially because CBS tried to cover this up. They tried to cover up human rights atrocities that in the past would have people screaming for justice. But here we are in the Donald Trump's America. Those screams of law and order and human dignity and freedom have gone silent, all for the sake of progress. For me, in my view, is shaking the hands of the devil to do the Lord's work. An oxymoron if there is ever one. CBS, 60 Minutes. You tried to cover up crimes against humanity. One way or another, you are going to pay the price. And as for you, Trump, and as for you, Kristi Noem, the price is going to be paid soon. You're going to spend the rest of your lives in prison. That, I promise you. If you want to take this as a threat, go right ahead. But I'm for putting you in prison because you committed a crime. It's too bad you're too much of a chicken shit. You and them, Trump, to stand proudly in front of the American people and say that I'm a criminal. I let this happen. That shows you to be a bitch, Trump. And one day, you will pay for the crimes you committed against this country in our name. This should not be happening. But you made it happen. You're a criminal, Trump. And one way or another, you will be called to account. So for your sake, when your last day in office is over, get the playing field, because the second you walk off the White House grounds, the cuffs go on. And that goes for everyone who supports Donald Trump, in government and out. Because as far as I'm concerned, MAGA, you are accomplices to this. And I will not forgive or forget. I'm sorry this video was very long but I had to cover a whole lot with this report. And quite honestly, I need you to share, to watch, and encourage others to watch the report. The link to the report, it will be in the description below. Watch it and understand how far our country, our magnificent red, white, and blue, the stars and stripes, has fallen in the name of Donald Trump. CTP, no truth, God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.